Welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of Coral Kelpin Community. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with my old boss, legal advisor Ariellla de Andrea, who's working out of Noumea, New Caledonia for the Pacific community. Yeah, I'm really excited that you could join us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thanks.
I was actually wondering if we could talk a little bit about your career path, because I think, especially when I was young, I was very like, how do you even get to these jobs or those jobs? Like, what degree do you need? How do people switch careers? Like, there was just so many options and they all felt very distant.
Okay. So this is before my current job, of course. So I studied law in Italy, and I tried to continue in the legal profession. So I also did my bar exam, and then while I was doing it, I realized that I wanted something different, that I wanted to work for an international organization, and always working on legal matters. I did like the research, the legal research aspect, but I was trying to get in touch with an international organization. And the obvious choice being in Rome was the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, so FAO. And I was lucky enough to have an interview with one of the legal officers there. And that basically allowed me to get my first consultancy. And I really, it's funny because it was really about coastal zone management back then.
Oh,
And today I'm still working in the coastal area on fisheries, but always coastal. So I feel that this connection between the land and the ocean is something I really appreciate. And I like working with the people who are involved in activities in the ocean, but also that are connected to the land. So I like this aspect of that maybe is a little bit connected to anthropology and sociology. So yes, I really feel this aspect of the legal profession that is a social science.
yeah,
Mhm.
it definitely, I mean, everything is so connected. Like, law doesn't just happen in a vacuum, right?
Absolutely not. It is. It has to fit a context, and otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. Yeah, that is made at higher levels, and it does not reflect the reality. So
Absolutely. And
I
so,
believe strongly that the law should kind of follow the inclination of the people. So, unless there is a really huge issue that cannot be solved otherwise, I strongly believe that people should be consulted, and governments should work with the people who have to abide by those laws to find something acceptable.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it just makes the most sense. And it also seems like that way you would get the most effective law as well, because it would be actually what the people want and it would relate to how they live their lives and what opportunities and challenges they may or may not have.
Absolutely.
So what brought you to the Pacific community? And you were in Rome, and now you live on the other side of the world in New Caledonia. And that seems like a really big change. How did that happen?
It is a big change, the antipodes. If you actually try to go across or through the globe from Italy to the other side, you end up around New Zealand. So it's
Wow.
pretty opposite. Yeah, it was a big choice. It came at the right time in my career. I needed a change. I needed to get back to the field in a way that is not as tiring as being a consultant, running from an organization to the other, and trying to focus on the same area for a longer time and working in a team. That was very important for me. I really needed to exchange, bounce off ideas, and I found this vacancy announcement online. A friend of mine sent it to me, and I was amazed at how it was matching my CV. I was so amazed that I said, I'm going to get this. I know I will. So if I apply, it'd rather be the right decision. So it took some time for me to think the idea through, and finally make this decision and apply. And believe it or not, in 3 weeks, I was already hired. And so, yeah, that was exciting. I can
That's
tell you, my family was not super happy, but
oh, well, that's a good
but
sign because you know that they love you and they're gonna miss you.
exactly.
Right.
And so I ended up coming here at the beginning of 2017, and I'm still here 7 years later. I love it, and really enjoy working with the team here and with my counterparts in the countries. There is a close relationship because we are a small environment, few people. Population is small, and people working in fisheries are always the same, and so you really create relationships and ties with them. So I am really enjoying it. It has its challenges, but by being flexible and open, I think I can overcome them.
That's really wonderful. That's such an exciting thing to do, to not just, you know, change the trajectory of your career from being a consultant to being part of a team, but other side of the world. Um, and so, I mean, I remember when I was your intern, I thought that the Pacific community was a wonderful community. Like, I felt like the name in there was so appropriate because everybody, I mean, obviously they know their field and they're good at what they do, but like the amount of care and respect and collaboration that I felt, I thought was really fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, so let's introduce what is the Pacific community now that we've gotten there from Italy.
Well, thank you for this nice introduction. I totally agree with you that it's a very humane environment and warm. It has its shortcomings. I mean, like everything, but it is somehow cozy.
Yes.
So now, more formally, the Pacific Community, SPC for short, from its older name, South Pacific Community, but now it's broader than just the South Pacific. It's an international organization that is supporting development in the Pacific region. It's been doing so since 1947. The SPC is made up of 27 member countries and territories, of which 22 are Pacific Island states or territories. Yeah, Pacific Island nations, let's say. So SPC provides scientific and technical expertise in many areas, technical areas such as fisheries and aquaculture, where I work, but also energy and maritime affairs, agriculture, public health, statistics, human rights and education, as well as climate change. Personally, my job is I'm the legal advisor for the Fisheries, Aquaculture, and Marine Ecosystems Division, FAME for short, at SPC's headquarters in Noumea, New Caledonia. This is a French territory. My job, or our job, because I had a small legal team, is to advise SPC governments on the development of laws and regulations dealing with coastal fisheries and aquaculture, in short, marine resources that are close to the coast. So their habitats are coral reefs or mangroves, and these habitats, as you probably know, are more vulnerable than others because they rely on a delicate balance of many organisms and also water quality. And so they are small as well. They're more limited compared to the vast ocean, and so they do need particular attention. They're also coastal areas are also close to shore, close to human activity, and so they are affected by land-based activity, but also by people who go in the water, not just for fishing, but also other operations that could be tourism or aquaculture, meaning fish farming, or any other activity that is done around the coastal area. So we also offer training opportunities for government staff to build capacity, knowing that administrations in Pacific Islands are small. They are made up of few people who have different hats, often do different jobs when the time requires. And so we try to train them as much as we can, and even retrain people using the first trainees as train the trainers, and then trying to train the new people who came on board. And we also produce publications to identify gaps in national laws and help countries work on them. And then we serve also as a hub for information sharing through our legal database. It's called Reflex, as in coral reef law.
That's awesome. Such a great name.
Thanks. Yeah, so this is basically it.
This is basically it. Just like everything you could think of is what you're doing. That sounds like so much ground to cover for such a small community. Um, and it also sounds like it really aligns what you were talking about before of your perspective on what law should do, which is that it should consult with the people.
Mhm.
That sounds like a large part of the job.
Yeah.
Or
Uh,
or at least how the organization functions.
I'm so sorry. The question is how we make sure that we consult with the people, or
Yeah, it sounded like you do that, and I thought
Mhm.
how appropriate since that's
Oh,
something that you personally care about.
of course, of course, and it's also part of the country's policy. I want to say that amongst the priorities of Pacific Island countries and territories, there is a strong relationship with the local communities, especially when we talk about coastal fisheries. So perhaps I wanted to give some introduction of the context and say that the Pacific culture has an intimate relationship with the ocean, and that basically, if you look at it, 98% of the Pacific is made up of ocean and seabed. And 55% of the population lives within 1 kilometer from the sea, except Papua New Guinea, which is the biggest landmass in the Pacific Ocean. Um, in general, fisheries are a very important sector, in particular the tuna fishery, so offshore. The tuna fishery is generally conducted offshore by foreign vessels licensed by coastal states. So Pacific Islands will give licenses and earn foreign revenue through these fisheries. To give you an idea of how important it is, the Pacific tuna fisheries account for over half of the world catches in tuna. So it is a very important part of or an important priority for them. But it should be said that even if it's an industrial fishery, it's generally considered sustainable particularly because of the regional approach that is taken in managing them, and to which SPC contributes through providing science on the status of the fish stocks, yeah, of the tuna stocks, and determining how much countries can fish. Now, in my work, I work more with local fishers. These people operate closer to the shore, to the coast, and foreign vessels are not allowed in those areas. So these fishers operate generally on a small scale, even though they can be commercial, like they can carry out commercial operations, but they also do fish for subsistence purpose. In fact, it's extremely important because coastal fisheries are really, um, we say, the food basket of Pacific Island communities. And Pacific Islanders learn how to fish when they're very young. So, really, fishing is part of that culture. The coastal fisheries cover maybe over 4,000 species of fish and seafood, uh, of course, depending on the country, with an incredibly diverse range of fishing methods, which include gleaning on the reef, but also fishing with spear guns or lines or nets from shore, by freediving or with small boats, and even with dugout canoes. So what's the problem here? The problem is that the population growth and sometimes migration, not everywhere, in some places, but also the increased efficiency of fishing gear can create big problems because it puts too much pressure on these vulnerable resources. Yes, we imagine what they are, right? There are invertebrates like sea cucumbers or clams or other types of shells or lobsters or crabs, um, fish of all sorts. I will not list here all of them, but they are, some of them, easy to catch, and so it's really difficult to protect them. And so part of the solution is, as we said earlier, to work with the people, raise awareness of the issue among the population, and including customary right holders, because, as you know, in the Pacific, it's the only region in the world where they have what we call maritime tenure. So basically, they have traditional rights on the reef and parts of the ocean. So this is pretty important to involve them, these owners and users of the reef. Many of them already know the issue. They have knowledge of the fisheries and how to manage them, or on the status of the fish, but they don't always have this overall view, because they are locally based, I want to say.
Mhm.
So it's good to work with them, try to involve them in creating new rules to protect both the fish and the fisher, their livelihoods, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, we know that climate change is also an issue. So trying to find what they call climate smart solutions, for example, in farming, is also something that is pursued. You know that because of the restorative ocean farming work that we did together.
Yeah, that was really fun and exciting, sort of
Mhm.
imagining a new possibility. And I think that was something that we talked about before, was this question of, what kind of ocean do we want? And I remember thinking you had just a beautiful res response to that, or if you would like to share it.
Of course, the response is not from me. I want to say that
Oh,
I learned this here in the Pacific. How they talk about the ocean as our ocean. They really belong to the ocean, and the ocean belongs to them. And so they governments have adopted policies together, regional ones, but also national ones, where they say how they want to manage their coastal fisheries, in particular. And basically, what they want is to empower their communities, the local communities that are near the coast, to manage or co-manage their resources in a way that is sustainable and is also maintaining the traditional livelihoods of people. So the way they do it is through a system called community-based fisheries management, which can have different shapes take different legal shapes or no legal shapes sometimes in the different countries according to their traditions and their customary governance systems, but also according to their laws. And nowadays, it's more and more important to have laws in place for this because, as you know, people come and go, not just tourists, but investors, etc. And even people within the same country coming from island to island, moving from island to island. So when you have people coming from outside, you can't just keep your old rules that everyone agrees with, even if they're not a law. You have to make it binding, unfortunately. I know this is a big word, but this is how it is. If you want to enforce or ensure compliance, like make sure that people abide by the laws and then um, give them a fine if they don't, and you want to do that legally, it's important that your laws are up to date. And to me, the way to do it is by trying to incorporate what is already in place locally in a, let's say, from a customary or traditional point of view. Sometimes they have governance systems in place. Like, for example, in Samoa, they have the Fono, that's like a local assembly, traditional assembly with traditional chiefs, etc. And so the laws try to use that system to create a legal community management system. So not trying to put something on top of them, but working with them. And to me, it seems to work. It's not perfect, but it does involve people. People feel that they are taking into consideration. That's my understanding and what I see. They feel that somehow someone is listening to them, that the government is making an effort to bring them together. Of course, it's expensive. Consultation is very expensive, especially when you know that people are living in outer islands and you have to bring them here or there. They don't have the internet, or they do, or it doesn't work well, whatever. The thing is, it's difficult to consult everyone and take everyone's comments on board. But this way, by trying to localize, decentralize management of local resources is a solution that is being tried here, and it seems to have discrete good effects or results.
That's fantastic. And I think, you know, you mentioned it's not perfect. And I think that it's really important for everyone to remember that, like, nothing is ever perfect, and we shouldn't wait for perfection to start doing things that can have benefits, right? Like, otherwise, we won't get anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
This is the way they do it, trial and error. And many, what I can say is about this specific effort of how they see the ocean, managed by local communities in each place, etc., but in a network fashion somehow, at least at the country level. Well, the way they see this is by trying to put in place local examples before any law is adopted. So NGOs and governments have been working sometimes hand in hand, sometimes not totally hand in hand, but they've been working to try and promote this approach in several communities, different ones. That's why today we're talking about scaling up community-based fisheries management, because these examples, or pockets as they call them, of good governance, they want to make sure that everyone in the country has access to that system. So, in order to do that, in my opinion, you have to put it in the law.
mhm.
So, where you tell people, okay, this system was tested here, here, and there. Now we can come up with a framework that is not too suffocating, but that will allow you, enable you to participate, have a say in rule making. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a really great model because it's, learning from your neighbors essentially. And I think maybe some listeners may not know that even within one country or territory in the South Pacific, you know, Fiji, for example, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's like an island or two, but it's actually like what, over 300 islands, and they're spread out, and just getting from one to the next is
absolutely.
challenging because the Pacific is huge.
It
And
is.
so having that sort of like uniting framework of, hey, this worked here, 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 and here, let's spread it to the rest of our islands, or even to islands that are a different country but similar ecosystem and similar customs, and like that can be really beneficial.
Absolutely. In fact, you raised the one of the points that I wanted to make is that basically, yeah, that basically this approach is we said to improve compliance. Yeah,
Mhm.
but when you think about it, yeah, it's because enforcement action is too difficult across, I think, 20,000 islands overall in the Pacific,
So
and
many.
over 22 island countries and territories. So it's
Mhm.
really a lot of islands. And some of them are really far away, and I don't even know how you get there. Some of them you have to just go on a boat. Some countries, a few of them, not many, are only accessible from another country by boat, not by plane. So it's really difficult to think of it in a Western fashion, right? Enforcement, like
Mhm.
enforcement action. Okay, you break the law, we come with a fine, and that's all. Yeah, it's really difficult to work like this, especially at the local fisheries level. These small
Mhm.
scale activities where people don't really, sometimes don't really see the problem because they think it's a small scale and it's not going to have an impact. But the impact is big when there's a lot of small scale happening everywhere and maybe even in the same spot. And so I think the solution is there, because through the community or co-management, because Pacific Islanders have traditional knowledge about fisheries as well. So it might not be the same as the scientific knowledge, but both of them together are pretty powerful. And if you think about it, there are, I think, more than 1,200 languages across the Pacific. And many of these languages are used as well to transmit knowledge through generations
Mhm.
about fisheries resources, local ones. So it's really precious because maybe science is um, not focusing everywhere. It cannot focus everywhere just because of the size of it. And so that you have scientific projects here and there, but relying on the knowledge of those people who have lived there for a long time, who have shared their knowledge with their language, and it's really precious to conserve that and collect that and use it, and let people also express themselves and continue evolving in those languages and cultures, not stopping them. I say this because many times when we talk about putting customary systems, governance, or rights in law, we think about uh, freezing them, right? Like
Mm.
we put them in writing, and then to change them, we have to go through an amendment and go to parliament or the minister. No, that's not what we want to do. We want to put a framework in the law that will allow them to use their procedures respecting human rights and gender equity, but their systems that they are comfortable with and that they know of to come up with laws or proposals, or each country is different. I'm not saying that it has to be community based fisheries management with a total devolution of powers. I don't think so. I think that the government has to work with them. There's also local governments. It's very important because national government in a setup like this cannot do everything, as you said, right? The islands are spread out. And so local governments, meaning island councils or any other name, it's like a bit like a mayor, the island governor. Uh, yeah, you have to work with them. So these different layers of government, it's a bit challenging to have them all work together. But I think with the right mix of delegation and collaboration, it's possible to achieve something.
Yeah, I definitely. And I think that a lot of times people who think there has to be like a top-down approach, they forget the things that even if there's, 1,200 languages and 1,200 different species of fish that are eaten, which I think to most people is a little mind-blowing because if you buy your fish in the supermarket, how many species of fish are really available, right? So like you may not realize what is eaten other places. Um, but when you're dealing with so many different cultures and even just slightly different ecosystems, there's going to be different needs. But generally speaking, most people have the same goals, right? You want to have safe food, clean air, good water quality, provide for your kids. Like it's not the common ground we have is not that complicated, you know? It's like, of course, I don't want the coral reef to die.
Hmm.
Um, and so that I think that's why, when you say creating a framework, like it makes sense because that's the common ground that kind of unites everybody. And then they can make it work for their tradition, their culture, their ecosystem. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. It's exactly true. So,
Well, oh, go ahead.
no, no, please, Sarah,
Oh, well,
go
I
ahead.
was just going to try to respect your time and thank you for coming on the show. But if there was anything else you wanted to share.
Well, what can I say? Well, I can say that what I like about my job is that it's based on what the countries actually want. That SPC member countries can come to us uh, pretty directly through an email and tell us, okay, we need help with this. Can you help? And okay, there's a little bit of procedure there, but it's really basic. And they want to be trained. They want to help with writing a law. They want to know what happens in other countries with turtles or with whatever, you name it. And we try to help them every time we can. And I think this is the right approach in a sense that the countries are taking leadership to come and basically ask for help when they need it, but they also want to take the lead in the job they're doing. So they're asking for help, but they're not asking you to do it, right?
Mhm.
They're asking you to help them do it. So I like this. And I think that I learn a lot from this also for other parts of the world. Other parts of the world can also learn, I think, from that. Because I think we can make a difference by being aware of the nature around us and by paying attention at how we use natural resources or misuse them. And I mean, anything we eat or consume, is made of natural resources. So if we are aware, we can be part of the solution rather than the problem. If we are not aware, I'm not saying we need to go and demonstrate every day. No, just do what you think is right. And then I think this is just a general message. It's not new or anything, but it's a message that is true um, for local resources. It's easier to do it for that. We keep forgetting. We sometimes we are worried about problems on the other side of the world, but what about us and our water? Where does it come from? Or our fish, what I'm eating, where is it coming from? So yeah, it's good to see what's happening elsewhere and being sad because it's happening elsewhere. But what can you do for your surrounding, your resources, your ecosystem? Because I strongly believe that we are part of it. Humans are part of it.
Absolutely. And then you can create your own little pocket, right? Is that what you called it before,
Absolutely.
the pockets of
A little
community.
pocket.
Yeah, like, everyone can create their own little pocket, and then it will spread. Uh,
Exactly.
I love that. Perfect note of, like, goodness to end on, I think.
Yeah, I
Well,
hope it was interesting and that I gave you the information you were after.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I just felt that my listeners might wanna know about the Pacific community and the great work that they do and different approaches. It sounds I mean, clearly it's working. It's
Hmm.
not perfect, but it's steps forward, and yeah. So, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everyone.